To the big bucks, Smitty and Wood. To everybody from out of Wakefield, yeah. To the sweet lady Linda and Lily. Hit me one time, fellas. Whoever like say. To the big brother Shine and Tony. To the big brother Gifford and Bird. To everybody from TC2. One time, fellas. Whoever like say. To the big brother people and Bird.
All right. Yeah, good morning, everybody. It's 7:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, USA, 1:01 p.m. Central European Time in the EU. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. And on that note, we're going to kick this little ditty off. Yo, how many of you have heard of the Maisha, what is it called here? The Maisha Namba rollout or the Maisha Namba card or injection? Um, Now, look, this is a interesting topic because, just in doing some brief research, there's a few discrepancies I've noticed in the news media coverage, and that is about this card or about this identification card. This is what is being referred to on the internet as a digital ID, biometric ID. I don't know if many of you know what that is, but that biometric ID is like a standard being rolled out in Western countries. That's what you get today if you want a passport, if you want a national ID card, if you want a state ID card. I believe in the U.S. most of that is done biometrically now, and what that means is that you look into some sort of camera, and they can find out, they use part of what a body scan to determine who you are. Essentially, that's what that is. That's a new thing in technology today, but it's been brought to my attention that this card, this new digital ID, has been offered in Kenya with one extra caveat. And I just want to know and hear from people, is this extra caveat true? And the extra caveat is that it would be injected into children at birth, not given like an ID card, not given like a number, like you get a social security number when you're born, these kind of things. Not given, but injected. So let's take a look at that. I'm not sure which one is real. I've done a little bit of follow up research, and I have not seen one Kenyan news source say that there's going to be injections. Now, I have read that part of the rollout, um, that had been suggested in the initial identification system was rejected by Kenyans, but part was not. A lot of it was not. So let's review that. But this is something that was sent to me about the Bill Gates implant, and you can see clearly here it says implant. Um, and for the record, me myself, I'm not saying this is valid, right? But we got to be cautious here because the news articles that I've read, this is not a news article, okay? But the news articles that I've read, which are Kenyan and African outlets, news outlets, they have not mentioned any injection, but they have mentioned parts of what was offered up as the ID card has been rejected, and other parts have been accepted pretty much. But so I don't know if that's what they're talking about, but I would like specific, detailed information that holds up to scrutiny about anything discussing an injection. So this is the first one we're going to talk about. And you can clearly hear it says, go black to Africa. Then it says, Bill Gates implant digital ID implant. You see that? Implant digital ID into Kenyans and youth approved. Now, that's a direct statement. I want you to tell me if this implant word is correct or incorrect. Has any implant been approved? Correct or incorrect? Because the reason why I say this is because it's so important to be able to identify any type of disinformation, because disinformation disrupts and disorganizes populations of people, and we would definitely not want that to be the case with people of African descent being disorganized, disrupted in any form of forward movement. So now I'm going to play this, and let me put up the copyright notice here too. By the way, here I go. Here's mine. Yo, Chris B, what's up? Yeah, and anybody following, feel free to make your comments in the chat. The chat is open for subscribers of 1 minute and on, and otherwise leave your comment in the comment section later after the video is finished. So here we go. So let me play this. This is by a brother here, and he's discussing an implant, and then afterwards I'm going to go through some articles where there's no discussion of any implant at all. So I'm curious where the information comes from about the implant. But here we go. And for further record, I am against any possible implant, any implant. I'm not with that. I find not only do I find that to be a violation of children's rights. The child shouldn't be able to make should not be able to make any choice like that, or the parent about a child regarding implants that are not necessary for your actual health, your survival. You see, and an implant about an ID is not. It's not a health crisis. It's not a health emergency. It's not the same as you being in a car crash and needing to go to the hospital to get to get some blood and to get fixed up, get patched up or anything. It's not a heart transplant. It's nothing of that. It's just an ID. An ID is not a life-threatening circumstance. You see what I'm saying? So I would always be against anybody having any medical procedure, that is not about their actual personal health, as a child. You see what I'm saying? I would be for I'm for biometric. I think that there's some dangers though with that too, and that there's security risks. And the question is who's going to back up, and make the security risks? Who's going to go on the line and say, you know what, we're going to secure your information. We're going to make sure. So I think there's some information issues here, even with a digital ID. Just because the United States has it, just because NATO nations have it, doesn't necessarily mean other nations that can't even secure themselves digitally should have it. So let's peep game. Let's watch the first one where it says implant, which I want people to tell me if this implant is correct or if it's a form of disinformation. So here we go. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Got to block that song though.
What's up, family? This is your man, not your boy, Go Black to Africa. Peace and blessing to all my brothers and sisters that are out there in the struggle, but yet trying to overcome and try to advance.
Now, and peace to the brother. This is no disrespect to the brother. I'm just curious where he got the information about the implant from. Here it does. I'm definitely for diaspora going to Africa, visiting Africa, living in Africa. That should be part of our human rights, given the fact that the transatlantic slave trade is real, was real. You see what I mean? Has had those impacts. But here, I don't find any link about the implant. So that's what this is about today. So let's go on.
Into a life that is beyond those who are trying to hold you back. Listen to this right here. Kenya is coming out with a digital ID program. That's right. Something as crazy as that, because Bill Gates is the one who's behind it and backing it. Check this video out and I'll be back.
Now, it even gets worse. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is continuing its global push to support its so called government backed digital ID programs, and this time setting its sight on Kenya, where it will advise the government on that country's Maisha Namba digital ID initiative that is currently under development. So, according to a Kenyan news agency, Gates' role is assisting the Kenyan government in its development, and the rollout of Maisha Namba was announced after a recent series of the closed-door meetings with Kenyan President William Ruto.
Now, notice here, it does not say injection. It does not say implant. It says Bill Gates pushes digital ID for newborns, right? That's not injection. So I'm just saying that for the record. We need to be very clear. In the brother's video, it says implant. That means put inside of your body. This news outlet that he's playing now as a reference does not say implant. It just says Bill Gates pushes digital ID for newborns. So now I'm going to continue.
According to biometric update, Maisha Namba is supposedly expected to address different challenges, such as
Biometric is not an implant necessarily at all. Biometric is something else for people that don't understand this. Just Google biometric. The United States and NATO nations, they have already implemented biometric identification. That means that when they have a better chance of knowing if somebody is, it's harder to create a fake ID. In other words, it's harder for someone to copy you. In other words, but it comes with security risk, of course. But let's continue.
identity development, and the rollout of Maisha Namba was announced after a recent series of the closed-door meetings with Kenyan President William Ruto. According to biometric update, Maisha Namba is supposedly expected to address different challenges, such as identifying and authenticating citizens, safeguarding primary registration documents such as birth certificates and national identity cards, and improving the management of the social programs and government operations. The project has been met with skepticism in some parts of the country. Rights groups have also been expressing concern over the possibility of discrimination and the erosion of privacy. But listen, I just told you in a very nice way. Now, let me just put it blatantly to you. The program targets the birth of new babies. So once you have your baby, before your baby leaves the hospital, you no longer get a paper birth certificate, but then you get a digital one that is somehow implanted somewhere on somebody's body.
Okay, so now you hear that they're saying it's implanted somehow on or in somebody's body. Now, that is not what is going on in Western nations. You see, that's not what's going on in NATO nations. People aren't getting, in fact, let's take a pause. Let's let it play, because that's not any biometric. When I went down to get my biometric ID, which is typical at this point, it's if you want a national ID card in any nation that you live in, if it's a NATO nation, it's biometric at this point. Raise your hand, type 1 in the chat if you have been asked, do you want it injected into your body? Now, some people have been, I believe they have some kind of ID that people have been working on for that for a long time. But in my view, that should be a choice, if at all an option. That should be a personal choice. And in my view, it should not be a choice any child could make or a parent could make for a child. Because in my view, that would go against child human rights laws. You see, you should be at 18 if you want. That's a different thing. As an adult, you see what I mean? You're now responsible for yourself. But yeah, again, it still comes with a lot of security concerns. And do Africans have the ability to secure digital data themselves? Or is that just another area where other nations, other people, China, United States, EU, and others, Russia, would have to secure that data for them. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, but let's let it play. So she said injected. She said implanted. You know, let's
To
hear it.
have your baby, before your baby leaves the hospital, you no longer get a paper birth certificate, but then you get a digital one that is somehow implanted.
Now, I don't even understand how you would not even get a paper one because still in Western nations, the biometric thing is a paper one too. It's paper, it's plastic, it's all of that. It's not even necessarily implanted at all. But we're going to review that. Let's see because if this is what they offered Kenyans, that's flat out wow, that's crazy. But I think there's a possibility that they rejected that part if that was suggested to them.
Somewhere on somebody's body. Think about that, but have a listen to this.
The digital ID, which has been a big problem to us for a very long time, is now on a testing mode for the next 2 months. I have been on a big problem to us.
Okay. I just got to stop it so we can read the subtext here. They should be able to identify digitally using their iris or fingerprints. See, when you go in there, you look into something, right? To get this digital ID. It's an eye thing, or they're saying fingerprints can transact without the necessity of people struggling to identify who they are. Now let's look at the next one.
A long time is now on a testing mode for the next 2 months.
The announcement comes months after the government suspended WorldCoin activities in the country over data privacy concerns.
I have been assured by all the stakeholders, led by the ministries concerned,
while reiterating that the Nairobi culture will be showcased across part of the envoy. Sakaja also expressed optimism that the entire event will be successful.
that by December, we will be able to launch digital ID, where every Kenyan don't have to carry any paper, plastic or otherwise, as an ID, that they should be able to be identified digitally using their iris or their fingerprints, and we can transact without the necessity of people struggling to identify who they are.
Now, again, that is not an injection. You see, that is not an implant. Not being identified without your plastic ID or paper does not equal you've been implanted. You've had an implant. Because they're clearly stating, no, it's through your iris, which is not an implant. It's through your fingerprints, which is not an implant, right? Now, again, if there's some other aspect here that they launching, like implant, I believe that would be against child human rights laws, period. It would be unequivocal. I would even think in Western nations that would be against child rights, children rights, which are separate from adult rights. Now, don't think that adult rights are the same as child rights. See, an adult could go in and say, hey, inject my body with whatever you want. You would not necessarily be able to do that for a child, even your own child. You see what I'm saying? Because there's some things there that are, but again, if this is what they offering to Africans, or forcing on any Africans, I would be opposed to that. But again, we just want to know, is the news accurate? Is the news correct? Because something this simple, we don't need to be in a panic about. We need to take action about. We need to first be aware about before any type of action could even be useful at all. You see what I mean? But I do understand scaring the shit out of people sometimes is necessary too. That ain't awake. You know what I'm saying? Hold on, let me read some of these. Yo, I'm dropping a link to her in a sec. People should not be shocked this is happening. Okay, Chris. Yeah, I see you. They have iris scanning at SeaTactic airports in Washington. Yeah, they have iris scanning everywhere now. That's what I was saying. The biometric does not equal um, it injection. It does not equal implant. That's not what's going on right now. You see, and this biometric IDs. This is typical now in Western nations, United States, all European nations. This is the typical form of ID, although you do have different aspects to it that you're given. But I've never been asked, do I want an injection or an implant of any ID? I was never asked that. When I went downtown to get my new residence permit, it's a biometric one. That means they scan your eye, right? And they take your fingerprint in a digital form. Um, that's what that means. There was no box to check for it for a implant. Zero box to check. So even me as an adult, I did not have that right to have a digital implant into my body. We got to be very clear about this. So it would be strange to me that any African nation would somehow want that when Western nations, shit, I'm not even giving out. I'm one of the first people to get this damn thing on earth. And yet it's never been offered to me, an injection. You see what I'm saying? So we got to be really clear about this because, again, shocking people is not necessarily going to be a useful tool when informing folks is even better. You see what I mean? I mean, especially if you think people are born equal with minds and these kind of things. But again, I'm also a little shocked myself because I'm like, damn, some of these people, they have said something about injection. Look, let's go back. The news lady said injection. I didn't hear this man say, or the news lady said implant. I didn't hear this man say implant. Let's go back. I didn't hear him say implant yet. Well, let's go back here. And I can understand the brother here. He says implant because we just heard the news say implant. And who is L2? Who is L2? The news outlet. So they're the ones saying it.
To support its so-called government-backed digital ID programs. And this time setting its sight on Kenya, where it will advise the government on that country's Maisha Namba digital ID initiative that is currently under development. So according to a Kenyan news agency, Gates' role is assisting the Kenyan government in its development, and the rollout of Maisha Namba was announced after a recent series of closed-door meetings with Kenyan President William Ruto. According to Biometric Update, Maisha Namba is supposedly expected to address different challenges, such as identifying and authenticating citizens, safeguarding primary registration documents such as birth certificates and national identity cards, and improving the management of the social programs and government operations. The project has been met with skepticism in some parts of the country. Rights groups have also been expressing concern over the possibility of discrimination and the erosion of privacy. But listen, I just told you in a very nice way. Now, let me just put it blatantly to you. The program targets the birth of new babies. So once you have your baby, before your baby leaves the hospital, you no longer get a paper birth certificate, but then you get a digital one that is somehow implanted somewhere on somebody's body.
You see, now I'm curious about where that is. I haven't been able to find that in any publication, any other publication, that it's implanted right in your body. So I'm just curious about that. So let's let it play.
Think about that, but have a listen to this.
The digital ID, which has been a big problem to us for a very long time, is now on a testing mode for the next 2 months. I have been assured by all the stakeholders, led by the ministries concerned, that by December, we will be able to launch digital ID, where every Kenyan don't have to carry any paper, plastic or otherwise, as an ID that they should be able to be identified digitally using their iris or their fingerprints, and we can transact without the necessity of people struggling to identify who they are. And the proudest part of it is that we don't have to spend the billions that we have spent on all the other manenos, as all of you know.
We're taking things that are.
I'm curious about this implant part. You know, I'm almost thinking that somebody confused the technology for meaning implant. When someone says, "Hey, you no longer have to carry a plastic ID," or "Hey, you no longer have to, carry a paper ID," equals implant, because that doesn't. It absolutely does not mean that. It does not equal that. Anybody that thinks not carrying a plastic ID or paper ID equals you've been implanted, i.e., that's biometric identification, digital identification, would be sadly mistaken. That's not what it is. What it is that they scan your eye. Now, this is where it might differ for children. Think about this. If you have a child, if you travel, anybody traveling that travels with their child today, if their child is between, is a newborn to the time the child is like 15 years old, 16 years old, you know what I'm talking about if you've had to get a new passport in the last maybe 10 years, right? Something 8 years, something like that, right? What they do is they take their fingerprint, and they might, in some cases, they might scan their eye, but that scanning is no good for them once they become an adult. They would have to get it done over because their body has now grown. But that also does not mean at all that they have been implanted with anything. It's a scan. It's a scan of the iris or a scan of the fingerprints. When you get your fingerprints done as a child, your fingerprints grow, i.e., they change. Hence, as an adult body person, you would have to get that scan done over to get a new passport, to get a new national ID card. Now, again, I have not seen so far where the government of Kenya has accepted an implant, right? And so now we're going over to the Bill Gates parts. I'm not saying trust Bill Gates. In fact, people that listen to my channel know that I have never ever suggested that you trust any human being on earth. I believe trust is something that is not even necessary. Don't trust your political party, but vote. Be engaged, be active. Without trust, study, research the things that affect your life, including, do you want a party to build highways? Do you want new bridges? Do you want education? Do you want paid education? Do you want universal health care? Do you want things like that? Yes, investigate. Don't let the government tell you what's good for you. Look to other parts of the world and say, what worked already? What doesn't work already? What do our trade allies do that we are not doing that might be a benefit to them, where as of yet we have not been offered that research? That's what I'm saying. That has zero to do with trust. And I'm also saying research to determine lies versus the truth being thrown at you. And I'm not saying it could be your own government. Maybe it could be. Maybe it could be some other government. You see, you have a lot of enemies right now. You see? So you need to be aware. And what good is it to be aware of one and not be aware of the other? That would be of zero use to any thinking, competent, responsible human being. You see? So let's play the next part.
Genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
Kenya is in serious trouble. Now, for you to accept
genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein. We're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
Kenya is in serious trouble.
Yeah, but where's the statement about, hey, y'all, my ID program is going to allow Kenyans to be implanted with their state ID? That's not a positive qualitative statement by Bill Gates. You know, he's talking, what the hell? He just talked about something else.
You know, genetically modified organisms. And
genetically modified organism is not an ID. It's not a digital ID. That's what you got to be aware of. So I don't know what's up with this L2 network, but if they, you know, this story, it's not adding up. But I got some articles that we're going to go over after we play the video. So
we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
Kenya is in serious trouble. Now, for you to accept this, that means you're going to be completely surveilled and controlled. Think about it. So they have targeted the new babies, of course, even the ordinary citizens, the grown-ups, the young ones, the teenagers, and even the elderly ones will receive this digital ID. But they will then create a new generation where they'll be completely under this digital ID and they have no choice.
What do you think? Let me say this right here. Let me put it blatantly or bluntly. You know, people say, well, what's the big deal, Go Black? I mean, hey, it's a digital ID. People don't have IDs. They're antiquated when it comes to their so-called technology and just a quick way of identifying people. Au contraire, brothers and sisters. You see, I have an advantage that most people do because I have the so-called a mindset. Because I was in damn Erica, put the D in front of America, capitalize the E, damn Erica, for majority of my life. I've served 20 years in the military, served in the intelligence and other commands that were there in the military. And I understand the way that they think. Yes, that's right. So when you talk about anytime a Western world wants to do anything with Black folks, you know it's something that they're trying to advance for their own common good, not yours. So what is it? Well, we know that he says, the President Ruto says in Kenya, oh, you know, it'd be Irish, you know, or fingerprint identification. Well, yes, that sounds innocent as much as we may believe. Of course, we have to use fingerprints, you know, when we have to get visas coming into other countries. And some of you all who work in high security places may even have to use your eyes to enter in. But what is the downfall or the cons behind the very thing that you might think is so innocent? Well, Bill Gates said they shoot an identity ID within the baby.
That's not what he said, though. So he's not quoting what was just played. You see, that's a problem right there. Maybe he's talking about something else Bill Gates said in another video somewhere else. I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about the one that's in his video. That has to be the one that he is quoting right now. Otherwise, it would make zero sense in him putting it there. So let's just go back. Let's just go back. Where the hell is the Bill Gates part of? Here we go.
As all of you know,
we're taking things that are, you know, genetically modified organisms and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
We're taking genetically modified organisms and injecting them, right, into little kids' arms. So apparently he's saying that is the same.
You really think about it. Putting a chip in someone, you know, the so-called Antichrist will be. And some of you all who work in high security places may even have to use your eyes to enter in. But what is the downfall or the cons behind the very thing that you might think is so innocent? Well, Bill Gates said they shoot an identity.
See? You see right there, that's not correct. And I'm not saying that he didn't even mean that. but his statement is incorrect. Bill Gates did not say that. At the very least, that should make you want to investigate further yourself. Um, and understand that you cannot just believe what somebody says over the internet because they said it. Even myself, nobody. Um, I'm not looking for just to get information from anybody, because if that's the case, you're going to get it all. You're going to be overwhelmed with information. I'm looking for information that answers my exact question in the way that I actually ask it, you know? And so that would fail the test. You see, just that discrepancy right there for me would fail the test. But again, digital ID period is digital information. And the question always remains, who's securing it and who has the power when they're able to secure it. Right now, the question remains, I don't believe African nations have that power. Um, and I believe that therefore they need to think cautiously, and they need to communicate honestly with their citizenry to have an honest debate about these things. When you're collecting information digitally and you're not the one that is able to secure it, you are um, you're basically turning over your information to somebody else. And the question remains, will someone else have that power once they get their hands on that information? There's a lot of other things that the brother did mention in the video that are concerns across the board. And these are concerns that everybody has discusses, nations, especially nations that do have this biometric identification system, and that is how much information can they get from you. But I would say this, um, you know, even with this type of information, biometric, identification, it doesn't mean anybody that has your number or your name can get access to all aspects of your life. You see, not even in the government. It doesn't mean that they have a system that just says, oh, well, type in the person's name with the number and voila, you get everything you want to know about that person. Wrong. That's not what that means. It depends on who, from what agency would like to access certain information. Certain people from certain agencies would only be allowed access to certain parts of your life. For example, a doctor would not be allowed your financial information. A financial expert working at a bank would not be allowed your medical records. Why? Because they don't need it to do their job. What sense would that make? You see, so I think there's an underlying misunderstanding about how people secure information today digitally, and how it's accessed digitally. And I think, African nations, they need to really have that conversation with the population, because expecting the population to just leap forward into areas that they don't really possibly understand fully may not be the best choice. But on the other hand, I do recognize that these kind of choice decisions are coming to them. They're coming to them no matter what. And I would suspect myself, just a suspicion, that although one nation in the world may not want you to do it, and one nation in the world might want you to do it, that they're all saying yes or no for their own purposes. You see what I mean? Even the one that's saying no, don't get it, is doing it maybe not for you either. Just like the one that's saying, yo, do this, may not be doing it for you either. You see, there's two sides of that coin, and both sides might be you know, it depends on what you are, who you are, what you're capable of doing, what you're not capable of doing, what decisions and choices and remedies are you willing to come up with yourself to make these kind of choices make sense, to make a thing like a digital ID make sense for you, particularly, not anybody else, because we know, South Africa is not Eritrea. You see what I'm saying? They don't have the same mineral wealth. They don't have the same access to certain things, geographically wise. You know, it's that you can't just paint a picture across Africa that way, where everybody's just exactly the same and all the same issues wrong. One nation might already have electrical power dams, another nation may not. You see, there's not a broad brush you can just use. You see, so I would suggest Africans think for themselves only. Nationally, also think for yourself. What makes sense for your nation? Period. Don't use a broad brush, and also don't trust nobody. Just because somebody says, "Nah, we not for this," don't make them your friend. Just because somebody else outside of your nation says we're for this, don't make them your friend. You got to think deeper than that, and you have the responsibility of doing so on your own. But let me just play the rest of this video because I'm not. And again, this it's not. I'm not covering this video because I'm against everything the brother is saying. I'm not against a lot of what he's saying. I'm only just finding this thing about the implant a little suspect. But again, you know, I'm not suggesting that there haven't been this type of suggestion has been made already in Western nations about identification implants. It's been made in China, identification implants. But I can't see how any nation would be following any child rights programs and then be going ahead and saying children should be implanted with any identification thing. To me, that would be against children's rights, period, which are special in human rights. It's their own category. You see what I mean? So, and if an adult wants to go and say, "Hey, inject me," I just want a scanner to scan my shit, and I'm okay when I have to go flying. That's an adult's business. That's an individual's business. That shouldn't be forced on anybody, including a child. But no human being should that be forced on. But in my view of biometric identification, the implants is like, okay, where does that come into play? I would like to know, where did they mention it in the Kenyan thing?
ID within the baby. We know that the so-called Bible or the conspiracy theorists who are out here are talking about, the so-called Antichrist will be the chip taking on the 666 image of the evil one, if you will. But let's go further than that. When you really think about it, putting a chip in someone, we know is an identity that you just can't remove. It's there. It will always be there. But what if you decide that you just don't want to be identified? Matter of fact, what goes on that identification? What is on there that would be so interesting that Bill Gates and others would want to retrieve if something happens to you? Let me give you a scenario. Let's just say, because there are those out there who've already made mention that the melanin in our skin is highly desirable for the sake of many of them maintaining a youth. But let's go to the next place of this. I had to do some research and find out what is the child's birth rate per year in Kenya. To my amazement, it's 1.2 million children born per year. Now, you had to look up the so-called neonatal mortality rate, or the children that die. It's 3.36%. Now, you might say, 3% of baby deaths out of 1.2 million? That doesn't seem like a lot anyway. Oh, yes, it is. That's 40,300 and something children that die a year. And that's just Kenya. Can you imagine if on this ID that it has, of course, the genetic or the DNA genetic code for each individual baby? Of course, we know they're going to have the blood type. We're going to have all the different types of where many people who are going to want to have so-called, your organs transplants and things, which is high on the scale for sales around the world, would be a great idea when you don't have to retrieve paperwork and finding out what is this baby's makeup. And so the baby could easily be sold when you go ahead and quickly identify by bloop, hitting the so-called barcode on that child, and then turn around and cast it around the world of what is for sale. You know, we already know that the evil exists around this world. And we know the Western worlds have run tests on many of Africans, hence HIV that has been spread throughout the continent of Africa by those who had their own evil agendas in trying to deplete the population in Africa. I don't know when they're going to wake up. We don't die, we multiply. But they also in America have done programs, St. Louis, Missouri, that they drove around in 1973, spraying in the communities, trying to find out. St. Louis in 1973, where they drove around and sprayed toxin illuminants to see whether or not what the effects would be upon a black people for the military's so-called advancements in biological warfare, or the Tuskegee Airmen, where these black men were suffering with syphilis and they had the so-called cure, and then they just use them as lab rats to follow along for 20, 30, 40 years to see what the effects are, only for their own selfish gain. Or when you talk about when it was the drugs, you know, whether it was the heroin, whether it was other psychedelic drugs that they have given to prisoners. We saw that there was a documentary done of black people that were in the prisons, that they had made promises that if they go ahead through these so-called tests, they could benefit. And only to find out years later, these tests they put them under basically caused them psychotic. Many died early on. You see, we're always the test bed of many of these countries and nations. And I'm tired of these African leaders who think that everybody's their friend, that they can go ahead and have confidence that they're out for the good of the people. You see, Africa, y'all.
All right. Well, you know, don't get me wrong. I have, I'm in agreement about this kind of just open testing and being a test bed for other nations. You know, Africa should not be the test bed. You know, but when we're talking about biometric identification, you would have to be a lunatic to suggest that Africa is the test bed for that, because it's already implemented. It's been tested in Western nations and is already implemented right now. That means before Africans have had any of it. So where would the testing bed be in that theory? And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about AIDS. We're talking about the ID. You see, so let's be clear. You can go back, and if you really expect to be able to go back into Europe's history with Africa and not find all types of wrongdoing, you would be an idiot. You would be a complete and utter idiot. If you went back into the history of African people with with their contact to other people, you will find wrongdoing there. You will find a lot of wrongdoing, even in modern times right now with contact. You will find wrongdoing. So the question in my mind is not whether you will find wrongdoing in the history of contact with other people, and not whether you should trust other people's motives when they're making contact with you. That would, to me, that's like a childlike mind, because that's not your job as a statesman. That's not your job to be able to go back and say, hey, should we trust people? Fuck trust. What the hell does trust have to do with it? Your obligation is to make determinations based on what works without trust. You have to back up. You got to have sanctions for people that violate any agreement whatsoever. Trust in that. Trust in that you will cut off all activities and relations with another nation that allows any of their citizens to violate any contact. That's what you got to do when you're a nation. It's not trust. You got to be like, okay, well, let's see. We're going to see. We're going to see. Make one bad move and trust that I will cut off all. That's how you got to be as a leader. It can't be like, oh, I trust them to do right this time. Who does that? There's no leader that should do that. So I'm not understanding where the brother's going. Like it's a good argument for don't trust folks. Yeah. But again, who is saying that that's what African leaders are doing? Are they just simply trusting? Or are they looking to, like they said, save money? They're making an argument that getting rid of the paper is going to save a lot of money. The question I would have is, and it's just a logical question, is okay, it might save you billions, right, in money. It might save the government billions in money, and in theory, that money could be pushed back into the communities, the people. But how many lives would be lost? How many lives would be tampered with if you cannot secure that information, that digital information? So look, I'm not going into any type of long conversation about things that cannot stick to the point, that cannot stick to this point, because again, that's what news is. It's point by point by point by point by point. You cannot discuss every point when you're trying to discuss one point and get to a conclusion about one point. So that's not how I do things, because I'm not making an argument that anybody should be trusted. I'm not making an argument that anybody is inherently good to anybody. Of course, I have my personal beliefs, but that would never be a political discussion for me. You see what I mean? I think lunatics, psychopaths, mass murderers, opportunists come in all shapes, sizes, and colors, and nationalities and religions. You see what I mean? So I don't approach things that way. I think trust comes with deeds only. You see? And I think, culture needs to be reinforced with deeds, these kind of things. People like to hide behind these things like nationality, color, religion, and stuff like that. But then when you look at the deeds that's backing it up, if there's no deeds backing up any of that stuff, then what's it worth? You see what I mean? Like you also should not trust another that looks like you just because they look like you. Like, what is that? That don't mean they won't rob you, pimp you, scam you, right? We've been through this before. Sometimes the people with the closest proximity to us can be the worst just because they have access to us. Now, again, this has nothing to do with this brother. I agree with a lot of what he says, and especially the overall sentiment of don't trust folks. I would say that don't trust folks. But, the question would be, is it trust or is it not trust? And if it is trust, let's get to the base of who are we trusting with that digital information? And to me, that would be the world. You're trusting the world. You're trusting every superpower, because there is no superpower that is in a position to say that they have effectively secured all their own information. None. Zero. The United States has been infiltrated and had information stolen from them, cyber crimes and things like that, just by one person dropping a whole bunch of information and saying, fuck it, I'm going to give up all this digital information on a card. You know what I'm saying? Yes, I will. And then China has the same. They kill their traitors. Russia has had the same. They go out and they kill their traitors and their spies, right, for information. Britain, I don't know what Britain does to them, but I'm pretty sure Britain makes their spies pay some way or another. Every nation has to make their spies and the people that leak sensitive information, which is also digital information too. They have to have ways to punish people. So again, let's not get in the business of trusting. Let's get in the business of knowing what's good for us in these particular at this particular moment at this particular time, and not hold on to it and say what's good for us in this particular moment in this particular time is what's going to be good next year. No, you must rethink this shit over next year too, and the year after, and every year you have a birthday. You must rethink what you're going to be doing as a people, as a person. So let me play a little bit more to let this brother play out a little bit, and then I'm gonna drop the link.
Need us who come from the Western world, because apparently, somehow, some way, many of y'all are fooled. And President Ruto, I'm surprised at you. But you did say it in your statement, stakeholders. You see, this is all about money, family. This is all about greed. Because everybody stands the chance to make money except for those poor children who will be inoculated with daggone a chip or some identification, so that then if something happens while they're through their infancy stage, their adolescent stage, they can just go ahead and find the information and then sell them off. Now you say that I'm crazy. Check the history of these evil people who go around the world making billions of dollars off the backs of us. Well, family, that's all I got to say. But it's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to think about it. Because if you don't, you and yours will be a sucker to those who are waiting by the wayside to reap millions off of you. This is your man, not your boy. Go black to Africa.
Think about it.
Yeah, okay. And I also agree with that last sentiment. Like, those that have the power over that information, those that can access that information, essentially will control some kind of wealth as well. That's the point. Um, in that, you don't want to have access to that kind of information if it's not providing you with some kind of power, i.e., and why would you have some sort of power that's not securing some sort of wealth opportunity? So, but let me drop the link here. Let me drop that was Go Black to Africa's, and let me type that up here clear for the brother too. Go Black to Africa. And again, please don't come to me talking about I'm against this brother or anything like that, because it's clear. It should be clear to any English speaker that my comments are not against him at all. The comments are just about the detail in that, and just making sure that we spreading information accurately. Now I do agree with a lot that he says, but my point is about this injection. That's been obviously my point. I've mentioned it so many times. You have to almost want to wish it away if you don't get that point. You see what I mean? It's mainly about that point. But you know, in any case, we don't live in this world by ourselves. There's a lot of different obstacles. There's a lot of different people trying to emerge on the planet, and most of those people will rather emerge themselves than to have you emerge over them. You see what I mean? And hopefully at one point on Earth, we could get past that point where it's just all human competition, one over the other. But it is what it is right now. And you don't see any superpower backing down from another superpower, just so that other just for the sake of peace. You don't see that right now. What you see is people competing, even engaged in war and even engaged in death if necessary, to make sure another does not overpower them or that they continue to have some sort of dominance stance. So I'm not saying that's inhuman like either. I'm saying all human beings have this kind of tendency to compete, and we will see one day. Maybe we won't have that necessity, but right now we seem to have it. So let me go to a few articles here, and just to make it clear here about some of the stories that are online. And again, I'm not going to go to try not to go to I don't like to limit outlets, but I like to have outlets that mention information that fact by fact and don't just say something generally, or leave innuendo. This is an article written by Masha Borak, and this is biometric news. You know what I'm saying? So they've been following this issue, not just about Kenya, but in general. Okay, Kenya's digital ID boosted by Gates Foundation, but government struggles to convince citizens. This is October 6th last year, right? Kenya Digital ID Project, known as Maisha Namba, will receive advice from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The global charity group started by the Microsoft founder will help connect the Kenyan government to key technical expertise and partners. Mark Sussman, CEO at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, told Business Daily Africa. We have a number of specific investments support on digital identification or digital identity. We actually provided to a broader platform, Sussman said on the sidelines of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund meetings in Marrakech, Morocco. Yeah. Well, I mean, International Monetary Fund is also, another institution under heat, you know, for being for discriminating, having discriminatory practices. I mean, let's be very clear about this. Has have any African people received reparations for colonization and slavery? And why should that not be part of the World Bank International Monetary Fund's, view of how they operate and fund and defund? What's up with that? But that's another topic. Maisha Namba is unique personal identification number assigned to every Kenyan citizen. Right now, that's what the U.S. has had. Every Western nation has had this our entire lifetime. A unique personal identification number assigned to every citizen. Right, everybody that's from a Western country on this internet has this right now. Um, the number is assigned to the Maisha card as a digital identity credential. To the card, Maisha card. The country has been preparing for the US 6.8 million launch of its biometric digital ID system for the past several months. At the beginning of October, however, Kenyan authorities postponed its launch due to unfavorable circumstances. And again, that's okay to delay. Delaying is fine. That's part of democracy. Going to court over certain matters is fine. That's part of democracy. That's the people's right to argue things publicly. That's a public argument. We should all be proud of that. You know, we should all be proud of any public argument happening. You see, because that argument is informing the public. You see, um, now let's see here. The project has been met, and I would say anybody who's against that kind of public argument is anti-patriotic. But the project has been met with skepticism in some parts of the country. Residents of eastern Kenya, city of Garissa, say that they are not ready for the Maisha Namba rollout due to poor infrastructure and network availability. Okay. Residents also claim that a local nomadic culture would make it difficult for them to use the digital ID system and have asked the government to reconsider the launch. Yeah, there's some different populations that are nomadic. Um, Kenya newspaper from the Star reports. Okay. The Kenza Kwanzaa, excuse me, hold on. Sorry about that, y'all. The Kenya Kwanzaa government seems to have forgotten it promised to make the process of acquiring an ID card, birth certificate, and passport less tedious for our people, says rights activist Aden Abdullahi. He claims that, I think Aden sounds like a Somali name, but there's a lot of Somali Kenyans. They're neighbors, actually, so that would be just how it is, period. He claims that government is back, and also the opposite. He claims that the government is backtracking on its promise to stop vetting people seeking identification cards, that rogue government officials are seizing the opportunity to demand bribes in return for vetting. Oh, damn. Okay, so there's an issue of bribes also for who can have this card. Rights groups, damn, that's interesting. Rights groups have also been expressing concern over the possibility of discrimination and the erosion of privacy. Okay, absolutely. The organizations argue that the government is repeating the mistakes of Kenya's previous ID system, Huduma Namba, which was declared unconstitutional by the country's high court in October 2021 for conflicting with this Data Protection Act. Now, you see, this is not the first card suggested. This is not the first system suggested, and this is not the first system being debated in the public for Kenyan citizens. Okay, there's a prior one, right? And as you can see, some of the same concerns came up, right? Data protection, right, was declared. It was declared the Huduma Namba card or ID, which was declared unconstitutional by the country's high court in October 2021 for conflicting with its Data Protection Act alone. You see, data protection has already been a part of the conversation. You see, so let's not pretend that Kenyans are not already having a conversation about data protection. That would be coming with that probably first started off with the digital banking era. Data protection, right? So let's not act like there are people that's just swinging in trees, don't know nothing about nothing, living in a dirt hole somewhere that just crawled out of it yesterday and was like, damn, data digital ID, I ain't with that. No, that's not what they're talking about. That's not the conversation at all. You see, they're sharing money. They're doing digital banking on some of the high, to even more than some Western people do it. You know what I'm saying? So in any case, hold on, let me drop the link because I know a lot of y'all want to get up, but please, when y'all come up, and I'm not just saying this to any one person, just come up. Let's try to be concise about what we're saying. If we're going to quote some information, let's try to drop some links so people know what it is. And yeah, that's all I want to say about that. Because the reason why I'm saying is because I don't have a lot of time today right now with this thread because I'm going to go live later with a different conversation. But let me continue. Right now, right. The Kenya government has attempted to reassure citizens of its commitment to the inclusion and protection of data privacy. Speaking, oh, hold on. Somebody hopped up quick. Okay, 2 seconds. Let me just read this, Pumpkin. Now, speaking at forum in the Wanjohi in the central Kenyan Nyandarua County on Monday, government officials, this is not this Monday, y'all. This is last year. Just want to make sure y'all understand that. That's October 6th last year. But okay, right. Here we go. Speaking, right. The government officials, including Deputy County Commissioner DCC Rukai Chiteki, noted that, damn, that's a hype name, Chiteki, noted that the country's national registration and identity system is lagging behind other countries, putting Kenya at risk of non-compliance with the international enforcement agencies. Now, you understand what that means. See what that means is that when your standards are below, right, your citizens can have problems traveling. Your citizens can have problems once they enter into another nation, accessing certain rights that the other nation has. But since you can't prove who you is, it may not work. Now, for those of you that don't travel, for those of you that don't migrate, for those of you that never lived in another country outside of the country of your birth, you may not be aware that these problems happen and occur. Proof of birth. Yes. Do you know how many people live in another country, even in the United States, even in Europe, that they have migrated to these countries? And because they cannot prove their own birth, later on, 20 years later, after they've worked and all these things, all of a sudden, the issue of their birth certificate and their identity comes up. when they want to bring another relative, or when they get married, or when they want to get a visa, or when they want to travel to another country? Are you aware of that? I hope so, because that's what this conversation should include. Those realities for those people that pay taxes, that have children, that have spouses, that want to access their rights, the rights that everybody else have. You see? So let me continue. Maisha Namba is also expected to address different challenges, such as identifying and authenticating citizens, safeguarding primary registration documents, such as birth certificates. See, y'all, I'm not making this stuff up. National ID cards, and improving the management of social programs and government operations. In other words, there's a whole lot of people that's having a whole lot of problems because the only proof of identity they had is something that is just unverifiable. Period. It's loads of people like that caught up in the system, sadly enough. And it's creating problems for their families too. Not just them, for their family members. You see? Now, what's the answer for them? What's the answer for those people? Or you got no answer for them at all. You're not concerned at all about them. You just want them, not having the same access. The number will also be used to register government services, including education, health insurance, tax, social security benefits. The official says, y'all see the gist of it now? See, it gets blacker. It gets deeper. It gets deeper. So we have to really be clear about what we're discussing when we're discussing it. So again, we're not just discussing human trafficking, organ donations, and all of that stuff that was discussed there, or even cybersecurity. We're discussing people's actual civil rights, access to social programs, access to everything, medical program, access to anything, pretty much. Let's see here. Okay. After the sensitization program, the system shall be run through schools by ensuring every child born is assigned a Maisha Namba and shall use that number through the school. And after they attain 18 years, the number will translate to Maisha Namba. So you see, there's no mention of a what is it called? Not injection, but what did the brother call it in here? Implant. There's no mention of implant here from last year, right? To ensure safety, the system will include a cryptographic technology for data security and support web-based. Everybody knows what cryptographic means, right? It's just like when you use WhatsApp. It's just like when you use a lot of messenger services today. It's encrypted, meaning only people that can access that or be able to break in are people that have that actual code, which usually the government is all over those corporations. To be honest, that's the only way it can work. It has to be backed up by the government that is doing business under. But my question would be, how does the Kenyan government do that? To ensure safety, the system will include cryptographic technology for data security and support web-based and offline identity authentication. That's online and offline. Okay. Digital signatures and access to e-service platforms, according to the Deputy County Commissioner. Okay. Government has also promised a third generation ID card will not be mandatory and will not require individuals to register anew. It will instead rely on the current civil registration system. There it is. I'm going to put this down here in the chat so people have it available to them. It's just one article. There's a couple other articles I have up, but let me see. Now the chat, I'm going to open up the panel so folks can hop up real quick and talk. Pumpkin, what's up? You the first one, so how you doing? I hope your day's going well. You there, Pumpkin?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, I forgot to mute the mic.
Okay, that's okay. You good?
Yeah, I ain't gonna be on here too long because I'm sick today. Because I got a
Oh, really?
cold. Yeah. we
Okay.
went. We had almost 90-degree weather on Tuesday. We went back down to like 56, 60, and the night before we went down to like 40 degrees, and
Right.
this weather's killing me. But anyway,
Right. I
I
got.
don't trust those videos like that because I see you notice that this something wasn't right with what the I guess he's the president or whoever that black guy was speaking about Bill Gates. His face looks artificial. So
Hmm.
I kind of like now what you just put up here. I believe that more so because you got it in writing. But those videos sometimes are doctored, and I know with Bill Gates, they got a thing against him because his thing on birth control. He
Mhm.
offered birth control to women in third world countries to
Mhm.
not necessarily, well, it is to slow the population down, the population growth, but it's third world countries where they don't have a lot of resources to take care of the children they already have. People
Mhm.
are going through famine and things like that, and they made a big deal out of it. So I'm just saying we got to be careful with what they say. I don't know much about Africa. When you do these things on Africa, um, I listen because, like I say, I'm not going to sit up here and try to be try to be an authority on something I don't know. And I said I'm going to start, following more, listening and following more things, learning more things about Africa, of what's going on. I knew
Mhm.
when uh, I knew about apartheid because my mother used to follow it, and she used to tell me about it, and we would talk about it, and she had all kind of magazines, Ebony, Jet, everything, and we had a lot of National Geographics when I was growing up, so I read a lot of that. But the condition now in Africa and stuff in those different countries, I don't know. But all I say is we need to be more conscious of and pay attention. And not saying that everything that's being said is wrong, but we need to learn how to cipher out the good stuff and know when we're being handed. I don't know, for the lack of a better word, when we be handed a lot of BS. That's all I'm saying. But I don't think that picture. I don't know. I don't think that Bill Gates it, the way it looks to me, it looks like his face was is the words are. It just look. It didn't look right to me. I might. It might be. It might just be me because it didn't look. I don't trust AI. I think AI is a bad thing. But you said that it's not. It's not that facial recognition that they talk about is not the same as the one they use on the iPhone, right?
I don't. It's not. But what happens is that now, since the introduction of this digital ID, since it's come into play, they have been making like phones like that can send that kind of. I don't believe it has anything to do with the eyes though, or the what do they call it? Facial. It's not facial. It's the fingerprint. Now,
Right.
so when you're trying to get a passport today, for example, or government ID today, at least in DK, right? Which is pretty much, I believe, it's the same thing as the U.S. You know, I don't know if the U.S. does it. People need to check that out. But in DK, there's a part of the procedure is fingerprint technology. And they're now using fingerprint technology for citizens that need to get a new ID card. And so they can use it. If their phone has that technology on it, that's good enough. But to my understanding, any person that's trying to get an initial, meaning the first ID you have, it's not allowed. You know, you can have this technology on your phone or not. The fingerprint technology, they want you to come downtown anyway. You see what I mean? So they don't even accept the anything from a cell phone company or this kind of technology from your cell phone anyway. They want everybody for security reasons to show up and have their fingerprints taken downtown, at the civil, whatever the offices may be called, for your ID, whatever government agency it would be. So I think, nations, there's technology is out there. Technology is being utilized by different nations, but no nation in their right mind would ever just accept everything, of any. They would look through it and say, okay, this part we can use, that part we ain't using. That's not secure yet. We don't feel it's secure yet. Our government doesn't feel it's secure yet. So we will not utilize it, and we will not allow our citizens to, period, or our residents to, period. You see what I mean? And governments are capable of reaching those conclusions. But from what I heard from this brother's video is that, overall he's saying don't trust. And I agree with that. African nations shouldn't trust, but I'm also not for battering African leaders for things I'm not fully aware of. Like, I mean, my thoughts are, if there was a bill on the table that was not shot down by the Kenyan government that has something like implant in terms of this digital ID there, then I say by all means criticize them for that. But if that is not the case, if it has been shot down long ago, even in round one, years ago, possibly, then they should also be recognized as doing such. They shouldn't just be looked at as like mindless Africans that just like accept anything from anybody. That would be wrong too. That would be called anti-black racism. That would be called looking at another man because he's black, because he has that DNA, and assuming something negative from it. It's not necessary to assume.
Well, I was gonna say, now that you mentioned that, I was just thinking, New Jersey is going on the digital ID. I haven't got for driver's license, but I haven't gotten my driver's license renewed because I don't have a car to drive, and I ain't breaking my neck going down to the DMV because the
Right.
DMV here is ridiculous, and every time I go in there, I almost get locked up. So I say I ain't got no car. I ain't being aggravated, but they are doing digital
Yeah,
ID
because listen,
for the.
the alternative, not to cut you off, but just to be very clear about this, the alternative is paper records. Do you know how many people's paper records are destroyed? All it takes is a fire. Then what you're gonna have? So
Yeah,
there's not another alternative. I mean, you could have look, people that talked about 9/11. What did they say? Whole buildings of informations got burnt down, paperwork destroyed, all past records destroyed. You want to repeat? You want to
well,
repeat? Do you want to repeat? Even my life, even my own personal life, there's records that I can't even get about my own personal life. When they asked me to come up with proof of presence, I had to go through shit I'm from the 70s. I'm born in the 70s. You know what I'm saying? So that means a lot of records. These damn high schools been through fires. These people have lost paper records. So I mean, what can you do? I'm not saying that I'm not saying that it should be necessary all the time, because at the end I had to tell these people like, yo, I'm sorry, but I don't know what the hell you expect me to do, but I'm tired of this shit. Screw it. You know what I'm saying? Because they wanted me to do proof of presence for myself just to be able to get my kids to update their passports and shit like that. And I was like, you know what? If you don't want my kids to have passports, then F you. That's basically what I said. I didn't say it exactly that way. And all of a sudden they wrote me a letter back saying, Mr. Bennett, I'm sorry about your experience. No problem. Your passports are being made right away, and they'll be issued for your children too immediately. And these are not the first passports. They already had their birth certificates and passports before. You see what I'm saying? So it's a real issue for people, this past records thing, and it's something that they're moving forward with. They are moving forward with it, digital identification, whether people like it or not. And they're doing that. They have this thing that they put out there to say that, yo, if they catch you, you're a terrorist or you any kind of person trying to impersonate another person, they're going to stop you. They're going to penalize you. That's basically what it's about. Stopping people from committing fraud, false identity, all kinds of things. And there's a lot of aspects that go into this. But Tar, what's up? Let me see what Tar got to say about this.
Yeah, let me just say this
Oh,
because
go
I'm
ahead.
getting ready to get off.
Okay.
I was gonna with this digital ID and stuff, this it's gonna take over everything.
Yeah, well, they're going to have two different things: online and offline digital identification, right? So that means, you know, in certain circumstances, certain information can be kept offline, meaning that it's in a digital format inside of a certain agency, and the only time it will be online again is when that information is updated and needs to be updated. You see what I'm saying? Otherwise, it will be in a digital format in two locations offline, one main location and one local location where it's necessary, meaning something like this: your driver's record won't be at your doctor's office. Your doctor's office records, your medical records won't be downtown at the DMV. So somebody at the DMV won't be able to access all kinds of information about you, your economic records and none of that. They can access your DMV record. Period. That's it. You see, that will be offline. Now that's the theory. That's also the practicality. That's how it functions. But there's always going to be an argument that somebody can access and break the codes and the bank and all of this and get all kinds of information. There's always that argument. There is no solution for that argument. That's already happening with paper.
Oh, excuse me.
So, I mean, I don't know how far people are going to go with either one. It's just the standards,
Well,
But
that happened at the police station. The old police station caught on fire, and everybody owed money. They owed money, and there was no computers. This was years ago, and the city lost money with the tickets, and people hadn't paid fines, and nobody could prove it. So
right.
I guess that's why a motor vehicle is going to the digital. Plus, my school, I told you I went to Catholic school. They closed that school, and I have a hell of a time finding my records because they lost the records.
I mean, the overall problem, the overall thing that I can understand is just that, like I said before, has the United States or the International Monetary Fund, what's their position on reparations for people of African descent? What's all of these nations attached to the International Monetary Fund? What's their position on reparations for people of African descent? So while they want you to pay a bill, while they collecting information, and they want you to update your information to be tied into the system, has the system completed its own, um, which is mandatory? Has it completed its own reparation for its crimes against humanity? So for me, I can understand that theory. Like, why would anybody want to be tied more to a system that has not already paid reparation against its crime against humanity, which is what the transatlantic slave trade was? So for me, I understand that, but you have to articulate that for me to understand that that's what you mean. I articulated it. If you are talking about something else, I may not get it.
Oh, so you just explained something to me because my credit card company told me I could that eventually they don't know when, but I'm not going to be allowed to pay my credit card bill with my debit card anymore. So
Mm.
he said I didn't understand what he was saying.
I don't
They
even know
were
why any person of African descent that's gone through the transatlantic slave trade should owe any goddamn debt to any corporation, right? To be honest with you, I'm at a loss
well,
for it, or the government, or a fine, or a parking ticket. I mean, for me, yeah. But
I
go ahead.
owe a credit card. I owe Capital One for a credit
I'm,
card.
there might be some examples of some exception, but overall, these institutions are backed up by the federal government. So, yo, what's up,
But
federal
what's the
government?
purpose of not using your debit card? And I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know about that one though. I hear you. I'm gonna have to
I
look
don't know
into that
about
one.
that either. It's money coming from my bank account because nobody on it but me. But he says, but something about security purposes, and
It's
that's what they
security,
always do.
but it's also it. I understand. Sure, the argument is that it's security. It is security, but how are you securing? Are you really trying to tell people that you're securing a victim of the transatlantic slave trade's life, and you're not even trying to pay reparation for the crime against humanity? How secure are you being? You're not being secure.
Well,
You're
that's a
doing it
whole nother thing.
exactly. Well, hey, no, that's a whole nother thing that attaches to my black ass. In reality, you know what I'm saying? So I could understand that argument, but that's not the argument being made. So you see, so a lot of this disinformation is coming from other proponents that contributed to the enslavement of our people too. They're not making that argument mysteriously either. Why aren't they? You see what
I
I'm saying?
don't know.
So
Yeah,
people need to think for themselves, like, how come that argument's not being made? Oh, because maybe a person that's part of disseminating that information and creating that information also played a role or don't give a damn either. You see, it's like, so we gotta use our minds and but yeah, there's no perfect answer. So
but
but go ahead.
I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start using paper again. Like the paper, mail me my bill, and I'll
Well,
send you a money
you better
order.
use some paper too, because digital stuff ain't perfect. All it takes is one person to type in the wrong number.
Oh yeah, that happened to me too.
Yes,
I
sir.
got sued. That's a whole nother thing. I got
Yeah,
sued when my
there you
son
go.
was younger, and
Mhm.
they
And
gave
keep
him
backups. Keep
Medicaid.
backups of your information too, your
Yeah,
own digital info.
they put the wrong number. He was well. They didn't put the wrong number. They put the wrong birthday. He was born April 22nd, and they
Right.
put May 22nd in, and I got sued by the state for a whole lot of money for uh open heart operation because he had
Oh,
a
that's
heart
terrible.
defect. Man, but I got it back. I was, I got my check garnished. I lost an
Hmm.
apartment because I
Hmm.
couldn't pay the rent. They was garnishing my check and stuff. And
Oh,
make a
damn.
long story short, I met a girl on the bus. I was sitting there crying. I worked 10 days. By the time they came, and I got paid every 2 weeks. And by the time they took all the money out, for health benefits, everything, I came home with $200. And that was all I came home with. I couldn't pay the rent. I couldn't buy no food. I couldn't do nothing.
Yeah, they oppressed you. They were predators. They
Yes,
were predators, basically.
it's in the New Jersey state code. Because
Hmm.
it was a K, and they put it in there, and it was the judge. Happily, he was a good judge. This was back in the 80s, so he wasn't one of them crooked ones like they got now. And he told them if a person has Medicaid and Medicaid doesn't pay the bill, and that the person is not responsible. And I told him, I said, this is not my son's birthday. My son was born in April, not May. And it was
Hmm.
a big mess. I lost the apartment. I lost everything. I almost lost my sanity. I was going crazy. I was just depressed. I was working every 2 weeks. It only bring For a month. I only brought home $800
Hmm.
after they
Hmm.
took everything. So you're right. Uh, it ain't perfect. It ain't
Oh,
perfect.
it's not perfect.
And
It's
so
not, yeah, and there's nowhere where nothing you sign, anything of any of this has nothing to do with being perfect, and it never has. There's no document you're gonna find where it says we perfect that you signed on to already, paper or digital, and
whoever
you know,
inputted my information, it put his birthday as May 22nd, and then
but
the whole thing was wrong. So you are right about that. Yeah, I'm going back to
but-
paper. Send me my bill ahead of time, and I'll send you a money order. And don't
and
give me no
also
late charges
it's
and all of that.
yeah, but it's also different. It is a question about, like if you again, going back to the court system, the idea is that citizens can make lawsuits against institutions and governments and things like that, or in private industry, and that a citizen, an individual, can do that. But look, I mean, it costs money. So if you're a person that's earning less than the that would make you in poverty, living in poverty, then how the hell would you do that? Nobody's supposed to compromise the only piece of food that they have for a lawsuit. How is that fair? That's not fair.
It was crazy.
That's not equal, and that's also not free. That means you're in economic slavery. You're not able
Right.
to act out on the other aspects that other people have the ability to in that society. Something as simple as a civil case against the institution or a private corporation. You see what I mean? So there's inherent inequalities across the board that I would say need to be addressed. But again, is that what they're arguing with this case? Is that what the brother argued? No, that's not
No,
at all
you're right.
what the brother argued.
All
And
of it
so that's what I'm saying. Like, but again, it's not personal against him. I'm just saying, we can all maybe try to home it in and be aware of these things. I think this article was more critical of the ID than the brother's argument. You see what I mean? But that's
right.
just my opinion, and that's just where I'm at the moment. But again, I'm not saying he didn't state a lot of facts that are true. He definitely did. Yo, Tar, what's up, bro?
Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go out because I'm not feeling well. I'll be listening, but I'm not gonna say shit.
Okay,
Okay.
two
All right.
piece. Feel
Y'all
better.
have a good day.
You too.
Okay.
Feel better, Queen.
Okay.
What's up, Tar?
First
Okay,
of
what's
all,
your perspective on it?
huh?
What's your perspective on it?
First of all, I want to shout out to the conspiracy theories because that's where I ran into, like I said, years and years ago when I started going into the fringe sector. And like I told you before, I was reading that these people have been talking about doing this since the 70s. I
Yeah.
read old articles way back when they was talking about it. At the same time, a lot of people from the 70s.
Hey, keep talking, Tar. I'm just gonna warm my coffee while I'm listening. Go
All right,
ahead.
cool. Well, people like York and Jesus Miranda and all these other cult leaders from the 70s started breaking out and coming out into the public talking about, they were sent from, and that's when the alien thing really started coming out in the religious standpoint. So you got a lot of people that we should pay homage to and respect to because a lot of people lost their lives trying to tell stuff like this. I think one of the most famous books that was put out was called Behold a Pale Horse. And the white guy that put that book out ended up being killed. If you ever read that book, then you know what I'm talking about. If not, people should go get that book, Behold a Pale Horse. Matter of fact, the book's so powerful, the Nation of Islam pushes it in their back of their newspapers as a book to get. And matter of fact, the Behold a Pale Horse is outlawed to be read in the prison. And this guy here, I can't think of his name right now, but he had a lot of government documents that he put in his book. He talked about the New World Order. He predicted 9/11 in there. All this stuff with the digital and all that stuff is part of the mainstream information that they didn't want out. And again, this is why I said what I said yesterday. When you create in a society like America where people was just, again, we just say Caucasian people, right? When they weren't enslaved. So they had, this country was designed to make them feel that they had a brand new country, and they overlooked what they did to to us and the Native Americans and stuff that was here, right? And they just look at 1776 or whatever, and they start from there. And that is a problem. But when their society was just allowed to believe that they started this country fair and square, and they got all of the holidays and Columbus and all that stuff still being celebrated, that was what they was, that was their own little paradise. Nobody was bothering that. And then we came up enslaved, and we was under their religious systems and all this stuff. And eventually this information started coming out about, yo, the government is not what y'all think it is. And this is just, again, as I started making my way through these different documents and videotapes and conversation with people and all this stuff, that's what I ran into. And that is what brought me into realizing what the world is. And for those of that who may be religiously inclined, you know, for people who may feel like what I'm saying is not credible, you know, I always tell Christian people all the time, it's a verse in the Bible in Revelation where it say that the devil fooled the whole world. And if you believe that, then you have to understand that everybody's being deceived. So before you come into what they call fringe information or conspiracy theories, everything you was believing before you ran into somebody saying something different was a lie. That means the way they do time, the way they do holidays, the history, the basic stuff. Just like me and Negro Rap was saying yesterday.
Don't they
Huh?
know? But I mean, isn't it kind of clear that, you know, if you're coming at this from the perspective of a Abrahamic believer, right, that this would be the mark of the beast?
With that, but I'll have more
Isn't that what they would
conversation.
say?
Right, but I'm saying, but we got certain people who are religious who don't even accept that part. Well, I'm saying those who believe that part of the Bible, that the devil fooled the whole world, then they have to include that the knowledge that they accepting, like we was having yesterday. I was being criticized, me and Negro Ralph, for having information that other people felt was conspiracy theory. But deception is what they was already believing in all of us until we started being involved with other information. They have to understand that. So if we take our conspiracy theory and say all of that is false, then that means everything else is true. That means America, Christopher Columbus discovered America. That's a lie. That's not a conspiracy.
But hold on. I get you. I hear you. But that can be discussed. I understand that. But that's yesterday, man. Today and every other day is a whole nother day. Even the day before yesterday.
But
So
those things, but Columbus and them still is affecting though. We can't say that's yesterday. But if it's still affecting it, it's still a problem.
But
go ahead.
It doesn't matter if you criticize for that. What difference does it make? You have your own perspective anyway. I don't give a damn what somebody criticizes me for. I'm on this tomorrow again, period. Because I know exactly what I'm doing this for. So I want people to criticize what I'm saying. And I want them to do it with a microscope if necessary. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm not out for any type of belief. I'm not out for it. You know, I don't care what it is. You see what I mean? What type of belief it is. That's not my point here. Now, I have my own personal beliefs, but that's not in terms of faith and spirituality and all of that stuff. But that's not what I'm here to discuss. So I want people to challenge the information, because I believe that the information, when the information is challenged through dialogue, that the cream rises. That meaning the stuff that's of use rises to the top. You see what I mean? So I wouldn't hold too much view on what people criticize you over myself, brother. But go ahead.
What I'm saying is what I'm saying is, because I'm making a point within that, because that's how my mind operates. All that stuff is going on. So if a person identifies themselves spiritually and religiously, because I read all those books and have always keep that stuff in my in my presence, because I'm a book writer and I'm always accessing and dealing with information. So I'm fresh on that. So people need to understand that when they're speaking to me, and if you say certain things that I can sift out there, okay, so you coming from this, that, and the third, I'm gonna answer you and more, because that's what I do on a regular basis. And you can tell how me and you been dealing with each other over a year. This is what I do. I'm consistently sending you information on multiple topics. Why? Because I study and watch the world. So I know that I do that more than most people that I'm involved with, whether it's online or not, because I have my YouTube shows that the books I've been writing since 2008. And the fact is that I don't let my biasness or my lack of understanding or lack of knowing certain things be my fodder or my fuel to
Tar, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, brother, but listen, even if you even even if you do have bias, so what? Everybody has biases. That doesn't make you inequipped to make an argument necessarily, and I mean it doesn't, you see what I'm saying? So me myself, I'm not understanding where you're going at, but I do understand, I do
Well,
understand that.
I'm parlaying it to what I was saying, because the whole thing is what the brother is saying. Like he said, we have people like us have to say that. He said some of y'all may think I'm crazy. Why? Because it's the unintelligent and those who are not educated enough are the ones who saying that, not the ones who put it out there to keep confusion. That's what I keep saying all the time. When somebody come into a conversation and they bringing all this information, people who might not even investigated that would completely, like they say, the empty barrel make the most noise. So when you have more people that's yelling and screaming about certain things, they don't understand that. Like Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates, I got an article that I sent to myself. Bill Gates is in trouble in India for doing this type of stuff.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Messing with
He's been accused of a lot of stuff. I mean, Bill Gates is a person that he's been accused of much, especially in the health services.
facts.
So
And he's a computer person. Why are they allowing a computer person to make decisions about health? Because he's giving the money, and Bill Gates and Fauci and all of them was tied together with viruses and all this other stuff like that. And Bill Gates has a famous YouTube clip where he's talking about depopulation over 5 years ago.
He's trying to make money off of the health sector.
And he wants, but his father and all of them is into eugenics. When you go into the history of Bill Gates and his daddy, they was all involved with eugenics, and that was a philosophy that they believed that black people should be sterilized and shouldn't be allowed to live. So when you do this type of research and when you run into circles of other people who are telling you this, that's what we see. When anytime Bill Gates' name come up, we know for a fact. Same thing with the abortion clinic. What's the name of that? The white lady that was.
Yes, Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, Margaret Sanger. All of that. Hillary Clinton said that was one of her heroes. So when you got people that's telling you this, the uninformed and those who don't believe these people are engaged. See, that's the problem right there. Is that we have people who don't believe. They don't have no evidence not to think it happened, because they're in a non-reality world, like movies, right? All of the movies we see, whether it's Born Identity, James Bond, all of this stuff.
I get you on that, because I am informed about that stuff. I don't give a goddamn about Bill Gates, but what I'm saying is that it's obvious that if you're a billionaire, Bill Gates is one that's trying to make money on the emergence of other people's health sector. That's obvious. He's trying to use his money, parlay his billions that he's made in the West, which is Microsoft, which is banking, which is government. He's trying to parlay that, which is Xbox, right, into an emerging country, which would be health sector, right? Because then he can get in at the root. You see what I mean? It's either going to be banking, through the programming, right? Securing the programming to see, this kind of stuff, right? I'm not saying that what his intentions and his motivations are, because in my view, any emerging country would see anybody from the outside offering a program to them as a possible threat. You would have to be crazy. So that's my view on it. Overall, if he's involved in eugenics, yes. Yeah, and somebody not involved in eugenics would also have to be perceived as a threat if they're from the outside, if they're attempting to offer a program like this. You see what I mean? There will always have to be legitimate questions that arise regardless, right? Because obviously the legitimate question would be security. That's one of them, like with this thing. And then secondly, secondly, who the hell? I mean, just even the Western, even when we talking about the biometric identification cards, even on the Western level, we've already adapted, we've already taken them, we've already accepted them. That's already a norm for us. And yet all of that was done without any reparations. So they're saying they're securing our information. They're doing this for the population. But yet, what's up with the crime against humanity? So
But
the
this,
two go
but this
against each other.
shows you why I said before a couple of shows back that a lot of these African presidents and leaders should be executed because they are number one. Kenya, I think, is part of the United Nations. These dudes are making deals over people's lives, and they are allowing it. You don't. Again, we don't. Kenya or any other country that's living natural and they're on the level that they're level should be allowed to exist as they is. Like you said, another country coming in and who's having the benefit as far as it then of having that. That we don't need that. I don't need to turn my people's information over to somebody else to be, then you have to pay and secure. All that stuff is just giving another country, and it's the same race of people who've been doing the whole black race dirty
I got you.
over and over. That's so I'm saying our leaders should not be making no deals with people if they look at the actual history of everything that went on. That's all we have to do. All we got to do is just look behind, look back, and you can see. Instead, if the leaders did that, guess what? Then it'll force the countries to show their real face, and they just gonna come in and find a way to get it. These dudes are just taking a little bit of money, and they're selling their whole country out to people who's doing crimes through technology because they are at the helm of that. Now, if we take it back 100, 200 years, it'd have been a different format, which they had slavery and other little things they used, but they still benefited off of another group of people that they oppressed. But go ahead.
In this last article, it wasn't this article, but it was the last one I could see. I'm gonna have to put that back up. They mentioned the International Monetary Fund. And this is what I'm saying, because to be honest with you, for me, I don't care if the dude's name is Abdi Rahman or if his name is, Isaac Gambella or Bill Gates. The question to me, right? Because the reason why I do this is because I'm not suggesting anyone should trust. I find trust a lazy investment for people. You see what I'm saying? Especially when you're talking about government, right? So again, a person named Abdi or Isaac or Bill, they have all equal opportunity to be an opportunist and sell out anybody. There's no guarantee somebody with that name or background will not be a sellout to humanity, right? So, but in terms of this thing right here, right? In terms of this identification card, right? I found it really interesting that the last article that I pulled up here, let me pull this back up just to make sure is this one. It's this one right here. Right. It's the one where it says, now, if you look at this article right here, right? Bill and Melinda Gates, right? They're talking about it, right? This is the biometric update. I thought that this was an interesting article because look, if I go like this, Control F, and then I say international, hold on now, international, you see that? World Bank and International Monetary Fund. We have a number of specific investments support on digital identity. We actually provide it to broader platforms. See, Suzman said on the sidelines of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, right? So then it goes on to say, look at this. You see, it goes on to say, Maisha Namba is a unique personal identification number assigned to every Kenyan citizen. The number is assigned to the Maisha card as a digital identity credential. The country has been preparing for the US 6.8 million launch, that just means in their dollar value, biometric digital ID system for the past several months. At the beginning of October, however, Kenyan authorities postponed the launch. Right now, this article was done in October 6th last year, 16th last year. Now, then it says, check this out. The project has been met with skepticism, blah, blah, blah. Residents of Eastern Kenya say that they're not ready for it, the rollout, due to poor infrastructure, network availability, right? Residents claim local nomadic populations will be affected, right? Now, but here's the key thing. Damn, my doorbell just rang, but hold on. Activist rights, seizing bribes, right? There's bribes mentioned, erosion of privacy. Now, here's the thing. They've already had concerns about the erosion of privacy with the last card that was suggested, right? And then it goes further to talk about other implications that it has for people not being able to prove who they are in terms of public services, getting access to public services, not just in their own country, but outside. But go ahead, Tar, speak on that. I'm gonna answer the door. Go ahead.
I'm just saying that, like, when you study what this stuff is from all the way back, it always ends up wrong. This is why when you look at all of the movies, I don't care if it's Terminator, The Matrix, you got multiple things. You had a guy that I think a year or so ago that quit Google because he created an AI that became self-aware, and they're afraid of that, and they couldn't delete it because it didn't want to die. So we didn't have multiple warnings about AI on different levels for people who did that. I didn't went on both sides. I looked at the basic understanding of it, and then I looked at it from the extraterrestrial standpoint. That's why you got to go back to what president was that? I think it was Eisenhower that met with some extraterrestrial grays that gave them technology in exchange for them able to abduct humans to try to find out how to become more biological. And they made a deal with them, and they allowed them to take so many human beings a year, and then it started increasing. And if you look at a lot of information around that, you start seeing America started jumping up in technology. And so people have to look at all of the information. And that's why I always tell people all the time that they was already ahead of us with technology. If you look at Star Trek, if you look at whenever Kirk look on the screen outside in space, that's a flat screen. When he talk about, to the beam up, that was a flip phone way back then. If you look at all of the little technologies that they had in those movies in the 50s and 60s, we didn't get that to 30, 40 years later. But the question is, where did it come from? So these are the things that all of that is mixed in the pot. And technology, especially if human beings did not create it, and you're getting hand-me-down technology from another type of race, that means that the people who are getting it hand-me-down, meaning that they're not giving you stuff that can overtake them, and they're going to control you through a certain type of means, and it goes and trickles all the way down. And what AI is interference of natural living, because we know that human beings been living on the planet millions of years without no technology. But these folks are addicted to technology, and if you look at how technology goes, if not interfered with, it takes over the natural environment, and then the whole natural environment looks like Cybertron off of Transformers. That's why I make that point 2 shows ago. People are not looking at how industry destroys the planet. If you keep building cities all over the place, you got to cut down trees, and cutting down trees is dumb because it takes our carbon monoxide and turn it into oxygen. So whoever keep pushing modernize is basically against uh human beings able to live naturally. Technology has its pros, but look at the cons and look at who's controlling the tech. The tech is being pushed by, like you said, superpowers who are countries ran by a certain group of people who have a history of destroying folks on small and bigger levels, that drop bombs, that create wars, who don't give a damn what the people say. And we seeing that right now. All of this stuff is on a bigger scale. It ain't about just security. It's about the origin of a thing. If you know the origin of a thing and the nature of it, you can always predict everything else, no matter what they're showing you this side. Like you said, putting a chip in a child for what? You understand? And like the brother was saying,
but Todd, that's interesting you said that. So where is the information about him, about them putting the chip in the child?
Well, he's saying that they plan that they're going to start in December. That's what the Kenyan guy said. He said in December they're going to start rolling it out this December.
No. That's not what he said though. He didn't say nothing about no implant.
No, implant. Listen what I'm saying. If you put the word implant means to put something in that wasn't there. When you basically look at the word, that's what I'm saying. We can't we can't overlook that. Implant just means just that. A chip is an implant. That's
right.
it.
There's no mention of the implant from any Kenyan.
The president said they're gonna use a computer chip. When you do the research, hold on.
He didn't say that. That's not what he said. He didn't say that at all. That's what I'm pointing out. He did not say that. So what I'm trying to get is, where is the implant information coming from?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. You got to understand that all of this is still in the same bracket. I done did the research. That's why I told Punkin, all you got to do is type it in. The man was saying last year they weren't going to put no chips in nobody. Now this year he's saying they're going to do it starting December. Now what Bill Gates said about modern, what he said, what's the word he said, the phrase?
No, but brother, what I'm asking is that in the video that we played, the brother doesn't even say implant himself. He writes implant. Where did he present implant in his video?
I'm not worrying about what the brother said. I'm going by what the Kenyan said. You understand? You got to realize when people do these videos, just because he said that don't mean we throw everything else away, because we have evidence that the Kenyan president and whoever he's working with is planning to do this December. If you go back and play the video, listen to what the president said, and then look at what he said last year, that they weren't going to do that. And you just read right here that the Kenyan people said they were not ready for that. And so that means what?
No. What I read is very particular, Tar. There is nothing in any of these articles about the court where they mention an implant. There's nothing there, not in these articles. And what I'm asking is for someone to present an article where there is a suggestion or a mention of an implant. Because what I'm stating is that biometric identification does not equal implant. So I'm asking, where is that information presented?
Okay, let me look at it like this. If you go up to a biometrical computer and put your eyes in there, it's not gonna. It'll run this line. It ain't gonna pick none up because there's nothing in there inside of you to give it anything. That's the point. You can't. Biometric still means you got to be implanted. It's no way you can.
That's not what that means, bro. That's the whole point. Biometric has nothing to do with an implant.
Some does. Like you can use your fingerprint. Like my Bank of America got a biometric joint and they got facial recognition. You can still they have that too. I'm not saying that what you're saying is true, but they also have implants that they want to be more personal to be able to access the person. But he didn't. The man didn't say biometrics. The Kenyan said implant, a chip. A chip is not the first level biometrics. Like me and you, we can look at an app on TikTok and they can scan our face and make a computer version. That's a form of biometrics. But there are biometrics that require computer implants. I got 2 books from a guy who done research over 500 Chinese companies that's into that. This is, you see?
Okay, now, but here's the thing. Even in the conversation about identification, digital identification, that conversation has happened in the Western nations before they even implemented biometric identification. Now, what I'm saying is, in this Kenyan conversation, where did that happen? Where was?
I don't know.
Where's the mention of it? That's what I'm asking.
What I'm saying, we have to now do a part 2 where we go and do more digging into exactly when was this idea proposed to them and exactly what does that imply. Me personally, I already understand what it implies because we've been bombarded in the West with this type of information for years. A lot of people over here is accepting it because America they produced technology through fun. That's how they get you.
But here's the thing, Tar. I'm asking, where did the Kenyans accept the chip implant? Where did they accept that at? Where is it?
This is what I'm saying. The man said they are going to start December. You got to run it back. This ain't about whoever's in there clapping with him and all that. Evidently, they got enough people to do it. I don't think that goes for the rest of them. Like you said, the article said the rest of the Kenyans ain't ready for that because it means they have to now make themselves more beholden to a foreign entity that's going to charge them for all these services.
Yeah, but there's no mention of the chip implant when it says the Kenyans are not interested in that. They were talking about cybersecurity, also different failures on nomadic groups, like just not being able to utilize.
Yeah, in this article, what I'm telling you, all you got to do is just do a regular Google's research on computer chip implants in Kenya, and it's going to come up, and it's going to show you what a guy said in November last year they weren't going to do it, and then later on, if you keep looking through the other articles, they show you that they're doing it this year, and the man said out his own mouth in the video, the Kenyan president, that they got a pilot program. They're gonna start by December. So that means that they are going to do it, whether all of the Kenyans agree with it or not. Whatever number they got enough to say we finna do it. And that's the point. That's why I say all these people should be executed. The same way these politicians over here doing stuff when the majority of the folks is not in agreement with that, and they know what they're doing is going to go in opposition to the most of the people. Same thing with New York right now. In Chicago, they trying to give immigrants a work permit over the immigrants who've been there undocumented for 20 years. They can't get no work permits. And they're doing all these things over other people, and they got laws in place that's now they're going against their own rules of how things supposed to go. And so because you're dealing with what you're doing, you have to look at the negativity of that. That's how you can tell who's who and what's what. When you start overlapping rules and natural laws, like you said, human rights and all this old stuff, doing the ones that are the ones that should be watched and they should be removed because they're doing things that really, even if we just put it to a rudimentary level, say it's about money. You trying to give a group of people a connection with computer chips to have their information on them, and y'all gonna store the information. That's what I'm saying. That's somebody else coming up with a plan for another group of people who don't really need that. You think they need that, and for whatever else you're trying to do. But the point is what I'm telling you, they're imposing through different measures, the same way they was trying to trick people over here to take the vaccine by giving them money and free food and all that with de Blasio on them. Oh, you get a free Happy Meal, or Dunkin' Donuts will give you free donuts for a year. All these incentives to try to get you to do something. And when that didn't work, that's when Biden came in there and said, look, you either going to take this or you ain't going to get your job. So this is what I'm telling you. When you see people doing that type of thing on a consistent basis, threatening you after the incentives don't work, or just outright overlapping you as a person, that's how you know that they're wrong. That's the evidence, whether it's so-called conspiracy theory or not. When conspiracy theories and reality patterns meet up, meaning y'all talking about a group of people who are enforcing their way of what they want on you, regardless if they want to pay reparations or not. I wouldn't give a damn if IMF and WF and all them people cut a reparations check tomorrow. I still ain't taking no chip or doing none of that shit.
I Googled that, right? And I've been Googling it all day, matter of fact, but I Googled it again in the exact sequence that you recommended. There is no article that talks about anybody in Kenya having a plan to insert microchips into babies. And on top of that, the one article that did come up about Kenya is saying it was disinformation, brother. Means to actually smear the campaign for the actual program that they want to introduce. So again, that's what I'm trying to get at. It's nothing personal, and it's not a personal against conspiracies either, because in my view, it's none of it matters if it's a conspiracy or not. What matters is that the conversation happens so that the actual people get a chance to see the cream rise to the top. So I don't care what to me, any kind of information could be good or bad. You see what I'm saying? But we have to really stick to the core questions. And that's why I kept asking, where is that actual statement made by the Kenyan government? Where is it in a court record? Where is it in a news outlet? Because if we're not careful, what's good about saying no to something when somebody else that may want us to say no don't give a damn about us either? You see what I'm saying? I mean,
go back to the video and play what the president said.
Yeah, I could go back, but he didn't say it. I mean, and here's an article pointing out the president saying that he didn't say it. So, I mean, the article's right here, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back after this later on, but let's listen to the president, because that's why I sent it when I heard him say by December they're gonna start doing it.
Hold on, I'm gonna put in the link that the brother put out there. The link to the original video that we've been discussing is here, right? And then I put the article in the chat also. Now let me just say original video of claim, right? It's not the original claim, but the brother picked up on the claim, obviously. Right. And then here's the article where the Kenyan government is addressing the claim, right? Kenyan Gov addresses claim. And don't get me wrong, because there's going to be a whole lot of things to debate and talk about and communicate about. And there's going to be a whole lot of disinformation. There's going to be a lot of Western propaganda. There's going to be a lot of Eastern propaganda. All evil. All evil. All should be questioned. All. That is, if we expect it to be a thinking people ourselves. You see what I mean? I don't see why anybody needs to be in the business of trusting nobody. I think we should be in the business of just only clarifying the details and the information and the sources. You see what I mean? So in my mind, if first of all, what Kenyans do, that's their own business, right? It's not what Eritreans do. It's not what Ethiopians do. It's not what Nigerians do. It's not what South Africans do. It's what Kenyans do with their own government. You see what I mean? And but at the same time, I'm not trying to belittle or undermine their government, and I'm not trying to belittle or undermine the people, at all. You see what I'm saying? I just want to know, how can we assist them in doing what's right, what's just, so that we don't become a problem for them too. Or, the same way as we wouldn't want them to become a problem for us. That's not brotherly and sisterly love. You know what I mean? So in order to make sure we're not doing that, we have to just make sure we got all the facts straight. And so that's what I'm about, just trying to understand
What
that.
go
But
go back to the top of what's the name of that article you got? What's the name of it at the top?
it's in the link right here. Oh, the article is called the name of the article is
Yeah.
from Kenyan Times, right? And it's called Government Sets Record Straight on Newborns Being Implanted with Microchips. But again, Tar, I'm not saying believe this news outlet.
Right. Because I
And I'm
found
not
something
saying,
else. That's why I asked you that.
yeah, and I'm not saying believe the brothers thing. What I'm saying is that the reality of it is that if there is no record of them saying that in a court or in a verbal statement that can be confirmed and seen, then there just is no record. It's a claim, and claims are different. Anybody can make a claim. We're not in the business of stopping claims. You see what I'm saying? We're in the business of knowing what somebody actually does and is doing versus what they're not doing and do not do. You see what I mean? So the claim can live on its own, but how much space should the claim take without being dissected? In my view, it should never take up any space, that it doesn't rightfully deserve. You see, but at the same time, even just removing this thing about the babies being implanted, damn, the overall question is still cybersecurity. Information. Who controls the information? Who has access to the information? Who has the power to defend and preserve the information for the Kenyan people? I think that should be the main topic overall, and I don't think disinformation should be a part of it because, especially in the West, we already have this biometric stuff. They have this conversation every day about the cybersecurity. But if you ask me, for example, a person that has it, right, I know for a fact how the government intended it is that if I go down to a police station, they have my ID. Just because they have my ID and it's backed up by this biometric identification digital system, right? Through scanning the eyes or scanning the fingerprints, right? It doesn't mean at all they have access to my medical records. It doesn't mean at all they have access to my financial records. No, different institutions have access to different things, but it's still imperfect. Because what if one person from one institution links up with another person from another institution and links up with another one? What about bribes? What about crime that happens within the society anyway? Cyber crime, information crime, which happens every day. A person could be in trouble if that happens anyway. So it's still worth a good debate.
But I got some from last year, but I want
But
to
I tell
trying to
you
get.
what,
But go ahead and
listen.
play that part of the video again, though, with the
But
with
but
the.
I don't. The reason why I don't want to play it is because then I'm gonna have to do the article and read through the article right now, and I got to step out because I got to eat lunch, brother. But
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm gonna do a part two. But anybody is free to look up these two articles. Look, here's the article is up on the screen. It's up on the screen. It's not too many articles in the chat, and it's going to remain there. And then the original video. Hold on. Did I even put the original video in front of the? Hold on, my fault. Sorry about that. It didn't copy the right one. Let me do that again. Let me put that here. Original video. Here we go. I'm gonna put that here so people can listen to it again and come to and then we'd be ready. We could do part two on this one, no problem.
All
Here's
right.
the original video. Yeah. So yeah, on that note, I'm gonna be out because I gotta eat some lunch right now, brother.
All
And
right.
then be
So
careful about that.
you gonna come back and do a part two?
Yeah. I'm gonna do a part two. No
All right.
problem. Yeah. I'm gonna do a part two. It's good. I know it's a hot topic and everything. Plus, people want to be able to examine those two, the
Right.
article, video in real time. So no problem. But I appreciate you hopping up always, Tar.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
question.
no doubt. I got more information on this when we come back.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
word. Okay, peace on that one.
All right,
And
sure, peace.
Pumpkin, thank you for hopping up also. I appreciate it. Y'all. Let me know what you think in the comment section of the video. Please review the link to the article and the YouTube original claim that was made by the brother. And again, for me, this is not personal like that. I don't need it to be personal. I agree with a lot of the claims or issues about trust. you know I would just extend those issues further. And how I do that is I got my own methodology for it. I just say information is information, and all of it needs to be examined the same way using the same methodology. I don't agree with the trust theory for anybody. So distrusting one has nothing to do with me trusting another. I say don't trust. you know Leave it up to, let the science speak for itself, let the engineering speak for itself, let the engineering be part of the security apparatus for African people. Let us have our own engineers, let us have our own security apparatus, since ain't nobody paying reparations for colonialism and slavery yet. So on that note, I'm gonna be out, and we keep the conversation going at another point. Peace, y'all.